And lastly, before I leave, I wanted to touch on 2-5's favorite five, taking it back to T-Mobile. Y'all remember that back in the day, Charles Barkley and D Wade. I'm not in your favorite five. So I wanted to talk about my favorite five. The conference realignment's going on. We're going to get some new matchups, some fresh matchups, some rekindling of old matchups. So what five matchups am I looking forward to? So this is football, basketball, this is Big 12, SEC, Big 10, everybody that expanded. These are my favorite five. I'm going to start from number five and go to number one. Number five, Texas and Texas A&M renewing their rivalry. Even though the Longhorns have a 76-37 and 5 advantage all time, these two teams hate each other. I learned so much from watching these two teams play. I learned about the Texas fans being the T-sips, because they're quiet in the stadium with their pinky up, sipping on their tea. And basically, that their stadium, DKR is not a tough place to play according to the Aggies. But then Texas has the dominance, as you just heard the series record against the Aggies. It was an annual matchup in the Southwestern Conference, came on over to the Big 12. And then, of course, Texas A&M left in 2011 to go to the SEC. The last matchup between these two was in 2011, a 27-25 Texas win, which included a last second field goal, if I remember correctly. So, this was a big part of my childhood. Thanksgiving, it was just a part of the fabric of how I fell in love with college football. So I'm happy to have this matchup back. As an aside, Texas A&M and Oklahoma, even though Aggies, I'm sure, would love to forget that 77-0 shellacking that OU put on them that they probably did forget about until I just brought it up. Which brings me to number four, basketball. Kansas and Arizona, two of the bigger brands in college basketball, going to be locking up in the Big 12 now. I refer to these teams as two of the biggest choking brands in college basketball. It's kind of tough to say that now because Bill Self has won 2 titles at Kansas, to follow Roy Williams' title, but these two teams, I can't think of any other combination of teams that have been a number 1 or 2 seed more and lost as a 1 or 2 seed. Kansas, I know about Bradley and Wichita State, Arizona, Santa Clara, lost to Princeton this year as a 2 seed. This is what they do, but these are two big basketball brands that are going to be locking up. And of course, the Big 12 is already the best basketball conference as it is, with just Kansas, Baylor, Texas Tech, and the gang. But Arizona has a chance this year. They brought in Caleb Love, so we'll see what happens. But no Pac-12 team has won the national title since Arizona in 1997. So, just something to shoot for there. Side note, and then, Kansas and Arizona, number 4 on my list. Number 3, back to football. USC, a.k.a. Trojangelus, against the Poisonous Nuts, a.k.a. the Buckeyes. 13-10, USC advantage in this series. Last matchup, 2017 in the Cotton Bowl, 24-7 Ohio State win. But overall, these teams have played in 7 Rose Bowls against one another. So, of course, back in the day, kids, for those of you that weren't around, the Rose Bowl was an annual bowl game at the end of the season between the Big Ten champion and the Pac-12 champion. Back then, it was the Pac-10. After it was the Pac-8. So lots of history there in a short bit of sentences there. But, since the playoffs started, since the BCS came along in 98, we haven't necessarily gotten that Big Ten Pac-12 matchup every year. But now we don't even have to worry about it because now it's a conference matchup. I'm sure they won't be playing every year, but it will be something that I will be looking forward to, which brings me to number 2. The Holy War, BYU and Utah. This goes back to the 30s. And it was pretty much an annual thing up until about 2013. Utah, right after they had joined the Pac-12, their last matchup, I'm sorry, they had a bowl game in 2015 in Las Vegas, that Utah ended up winning. But their last matchup was in 2021. BYU won 26-17 overall series. 59, 32, and 4 in favor of the Utes. I actually attended one of these games in person, so that's a little bit of bias on my part. But there's a lot of hate between these two schools that doesn't get recognized because they have the religious background. They're in Utah, so a lot of America doesn't really keep up with it. But there is a lot of vitriol that the nation will be exposed to. They were a part of the WAC together, they were a part of the Mountain West together. BYU is joining the Big 12 this year after being an independent, and now Utah will be coming in next season, which brings me to number one, basketball. Blue Bloods. One of these schools, some say is not a blue blood anymore. They're losing their status. But Indiana and UCLA. Now, before you even get into whether Indiana loses their blue blood status or not, 2-5 is just going to tell you once you're a blue blood, you're a blue blood. You might be the drunk uncle that nobody wants to claim, but once you're in the club, you can't get kicked out the club. People can get added. I don't feel you can get kicked out the club. But even with that being said, if you want to say that Indiana is a has been, between UCLA and Indiana going to be in the the Big Ten together next year, no other conference has two teams that combine for as many national titles as these two. So 16 titles total, 11 for UCLA, 5 for Indiana. Last time they met, 2007 in the Sweet 16. UCLA with the 54-49 win. That was your guy, Aaron Aflalo. So it's been that long, which is a damn shame, since they don't play a little more regularly than that. So, those are the 5 matchups that I'm looking to. But I want to know, what matchups are you looking forward to? Like, review, subscribe.